Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and today I wanted to talk about whether or not language learning is a waste of time or not. And I wanted to kind of go into a lot of depth into this answer. I didn't want to make a video that's just like yes, it is, or no, it's not. So it's going to be a kind of a long video. So just keep that in mind. But I think there's a lot of things to think about when you ask yourself this question, because what do you mean from the kind of idea of it's a waste of time? And I think for a lot of people, what they mean is it's a waste of time from a financial perspective. It's a waste of time from a status perspective in terms of getting more people to like you, or having a more prestigious job, or a job that's higher up on the kind of corporate ladder, or something along those lines. And we have to remember that value, or whether or not something is a waste of time, is very relative. And the thing is, every single person has different values. We have different personalities. We have different experiences. So, some of us like to do certain things, and sometimes we don't like other things. And I think this is very important because, language learning is just one activity of many that you can, do and spend your time on, like anything else. So, for some people, watching football or something like that is enjoyable. But to others, that could be thought of as a waste of time. And the thing about it is that, maybe it's not a waste of time. Maybe that's the time that they spend and connect with their loved ones, or it's something that rejuvenates them and it's enjoyable for them. So is that a waste of time, right? Well, maybe it's a waste of time from a financial perspective. Maybe it's a waste of time from a knowledge perspective, but they are gaining things that are, that they want, right? Whether that's enjoyment and rest, building relationships that they have with people. So you have to be careful about this. We're not just machines that are purely focused in on productivity, on acquiring money and things like that. We're not just a money-making machine. There are many different aspects to us, right? We want connection. We want to rest and enjoy things. We want to do productive things and be successful and things like that. So we have to be very careful about this idea of, is it a waste of time or not? Because in the end of the day, you decide for yourself, what is valuable for you, at this given point, right? Is it you want to build connections and relationships with people? Is it about knowledge? Is it about financial independence? What is it? So, you can't really answer this question without analyzing all those different variables, right? And, humans are going to need kind of bits and pieces of all of those aspects of life. So, to think about it purely from the perspective of is it an activity that's a waste of time or not, I think is just the wrong way to ask things, because it's always going to be relative. So you need to ask yourself, that question for you in the context of your own life. Now, that being said, though, I think that language learning does have a lot of benefits, and I think that it can advance your life in a lot of different ways, but it's just going to depend. So, for example, let's talk about language learning kind of from a more practical perspective, from a career or financial perspective. I think that, if you have a particular goal or a purpose centered around languages, then totally it's not a waste of time, right? I think some people, they want to, teach English in other countries. And so obviously, learning the language, of the country that they're going to be in is very relevant for them. Maybe it's that you need to help build a certain part of your business in a certain region, let's say Latin America, and then having a very strong competency in Spanish is very important for your corporate role or for the business that you own. So maybe you want to be an interpreter and you need to have very advanced language skills, or you're a historian and need to be able to decipher ancient Greek. Whatever it is, there are certain cases where language learning is clearly relevant for you, right? I think that a big misconception that a lot of people have is that they think that just some sort of language learning skill is going to be helpful for them in the end of the day. So, the fact of the matter is, at least within a professional context, or kind of a more traditional corporate role, for it to be worthwhile, you probably need to reach a very high skill level. You need to reach a level where you're fluent or very competent, because just having some sort of skills, taking a couple Spanish classes in high school and not being fluent isn't really going to help you in kind of that corporate role, or that translator role, or whatever it is. Probably you're going to need a high level of competency. So I think that some people think that the bar is a lot lower, but if your goal is to kind of use it in that professional context, maybe as an engineer or something like that, you're probably going to need a very high skill level. But for some people, that's not an issue, and that's something that they really want to do. That being said, though, there are cases where that doesn't really matter, right? Maybe you're a medical professional, you have a lot of patients that speak Spanish, and thus knowing some Spanish skills is helpful for you to connect with those patients. Or you're doing outreach events and you need to know the language just a little bit. It doesn't really matter that you're fluent, but just having some sort of language skills is helpful. So in some cases, from a professional context, it's not necessary to be fluent. But in a lot of ways, from a corporate perspective or advancement perspective, you probably need a very high skill level for it to be worthwhile. But it doesn't have to be. And that's the thing about this subject matter, is that it's very relative. There's not a clear answer. And I don't want to be the person that just says, yes, it is a waste of time, or no, it's not, it's not a waste of time, because the answer is in reality very gray. And I would rather kind of you think about the subject from a lot of different aspects, and think for yourself to come to those conclusions. And when you do those things, you're able to kind of apply that same principle to other questions that you may have in your life. So from a professional perspective, I think it depends. Sometimes that high competency level is very important. But in other cases, maybe it's not relevant if you're doing outreach and things like that. The thing about it too is that language learning, in my opinion, can be very rewarding. It can be just as rewarding as any other skill or activity that you kind of do. And in a lot of ways, I think it has a very kind of unique experience compared to other activities, such as learning to cook or skiing or something along those lines. And what that is that language learning opens you up to a new group of people that you would not have been able to communicate with before. And that is incredibly awesome. It's an amazing experience, and a lot of other activities don't necessarily give you that ability, right? So, you're able to talk with people and have experiences with people that you would not have been able to have before. And that's amazing. Even in my own personal experience, I was in Germany a couple of years ago, and I had, just met so many people and had that, amazing experience because, I could speak German, or, road tripping across Austria. Same idea. I think that, without that language skill, you couldn't really have had the same experience or communicate with certain people because you didn't have that language learning skill in of itself. And the thing about it too is that language learning really is kind of a unique experience because you face a lot of challenges trying to get fluent or very competent, right? You'll run into plateaus. You doubt yourself, but you overcome those obstacles, and that can be an amazing and great experience in of itself. So, while it might not be like a super fun activity sometimes and, enjoyable, there are times when overcoming that obstacle or learning something and acquiring something just like that can be very difficult can be just so rewarding. So that's what I had to say on the subject. I think that it is worthwhile, but you have to ask yourself a lot of different questions, in terms of, what are your values? What are you trying to accomplish in life? What are you focused on? To really answer that question. But the short answer is I do think it is worthwhile. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.